Welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8, and I have a book here in front of me, The Odyssey by Homer. The very back of the book reads, "Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide after he had sacked the famous town of Troy." Now, this book I was able to pick up for $20, and what you see here is a picture from the movie, or some people would refer to as a TV series even. But then again, there's other TV series I think would also count like movies. Heck, there's one that recently came out, I think, called the Obi-Wan. I don't remember what it's called, but beyond that, yeah, I'm terrible remembering things. I'm sorry. But it is June 1st, 2022, and I'd have to say this movie, which I believe, if I remember correctly, was released in 1997. This is a movie or TV adaptation, which I still consider a movie, of the story The Odyssey. Now, as you see here, the movie stars Armand Assante. Though I'd have to say I enjoyed the acting and performance of all of the actors throughout the movie. But I would say Armand Assante did an amazing job. And I would say The Odyssey with Armand Assante is the second best movie ever made, and always will be. And in fact, if I had to suggest, even I would say it's the second best movie ever made. If I had to suggest a movie right off the bat to anyone to watch, it would be this. I think everyone in the world should watch this movie. Everyone in the world should see and hear the acting prowess of Armand Assante. And they should know the story of the Odyssey. Now, that being said, I do not think I've actually physically read the Odyssey in a couple decades. So I can't say I'm very familiar with it. So I'm bound to have forgotten a few things here and there. But, yes, I'm going to read the book of the Odyssey. This book is 281 pages long. So, not all of it one day. But, yeah, if I can, I want every one of you out there. You can find it for free on YouTube. Heck, I've even saved it in some of my playlists. Just because I want you guys to watch it. That's the thing. I've posted like 1.6K videos myself, but I've also posted a rambling of just all sorts of other videos on my channel, just because I'm like, hey guys, look at this! I found a funny Ed, Ed and Eddie video! Or hey, here's a thing with Darth Vader! Or here's some cool music! You know, I'm like, hey guys, I found this really cool thing and I want to share with you. But, yeah, you can find the movie The Odyssey, and I still call it a movie. Just type on YouTube. Just go to YouTube. You're already here. Go to YouTube and type in The Odyssey and type in Armand Assante. You'll probably get a 3-hour long movie. That's right there. It's even got subtitles in multiple different languages if you choose. So, but it's in English, and I'm sure you can find other versions. But I want all of you to watch this movie. Even if you don't watch the rest of this video or anything else I ever post, watch this movie. It's a great movie. It's the second best movie ever made. I know I'm not saying what the first best is, but this is the second best movie. I think everyone in the world should watch this movie. So, I'm going to open up this book. Got a picture of one of those older style boats. Preface. This translation is intended to supplement a work entitled The Authoress of the Odyssey, which I published in 1897. Who wrote? It'll probably say at the end of the preface who this is. Um, I could not give the whole Odyssey in that book without making it unwieldy. I therefore epitomized my translation, which was already completed and which I now publish in full. I shall not here argue the two main points dealt with in the work just mentioned. I have nothing either to add to or withdraw from. What I have there written, the points in question are that the Odyssey was written entirely at and drawn entirely from the place now called Trapani on the west coast of Sicily, alike as regards the Phaeacian and Ithaca scenes, while the voyages of Ulysses, when once he is within reach of Sicily, resolve themselves into Peripolis of the island, practically from Trapani back to Trapani, via the Lipari Islands, the Straits of Messina, and the island of Pantelleria. And two, the poem was entirely written by a very young woman who lived at the place now called Trapani, and introduced herself into the work under the name Nausicaa. The main arguments on which I base the first of these somewhat startling contentions have been prominently and repeatedly before the English and Italian public ever since they appeared without rejoinder in the Athenaeum for 30th January and 20th February 1892. Both contentions were urged, also without rejoinder, in the Jonathan Eagle for the Lent and October terms of the same year. Nothing to which I should reply has reached me from any quarter, and how anxiously I have endeavored to learn the existence of any flaws in my argument. I begin to feel some confidence that did such flaws exist, I should have heard at any rate about some of them. Before now, without, therefore, for a moment, pretending to think that scholars generally acquiesce in my conclusions, I shall act as thinking them little likely so to gainsay me as that it will incumbent upon me to reply, and shall confine myself to translating the Odyssey for English readers, with such notes as I think I will be found useful. In the preface to my translation of the Iliad, I have given my views as to the main principles by which the translator should be guided, and need not repeat them here, beyond pointing out that the initial liberty of translating poetry into prose involves the continual taking of more or less liberty throughout the translation. Well, I mean, yeah, if you change one thing from one language to another, I mean, if things are meant to rhyme or sound good together, I mean, different languages don't make the same sounds, or use the same amount of syllables for that matter. For much that is right in poetry is wrong in prose, and the exegeses of readable prose are the first things to be considered in a prose translation. That the reader, however, may see how far I have departed from the strict construe, I will print here Messrs. Messrs. Butcher and Lang's translation of the first lines of the Odyssey. Their translation runs: Tell me, Muse, of that man so ready at need, who wandered far and wide after he had sacked the sacred citadel of Troy, and many were the men whose towns he saw, and whose mind he learnt, yea, and many the woes he suffered in his heart, on the deep striving to win his own life, and the return of his company. Nay, but even so he saved not his company, though he desired it sore. For through the blindness of their own hearts they perished, fools, who devoured the oxen of Helios Hyperion. But the God took from them their days of returning. Of these things, goddess, daughter of Zeus, Win, Sco. Okay, you have the word win and then soever, but in between it, whence, yeah, whencesoever thou hast heard thereof, declare thou even unto us. I had seen a book of a bunch of like a full collection of Shakespeare, and I'm like, I don't know how much I'm going to struggle with Old English, let alone proper English like this. Though I guess Old English from some people's point of view would be proper. I'm just the English that I am used to using. Where was I? Now all the rest, as Phineus fled from sheer destruction, were at home and had escaped both war and sea. But Odysseus only, craving for his wife and for his homeward path, the lady nymph Calypso held, that fair goddess in her hollow caves, longing to have him for her lord. But when now the year had come, and the courses of the seasons, wherein the gods had ordained that he should return home to Ithaca, not even there was he quit of labours, not even among his own, but all the gods had pity on him save Poseidon, who raged continually against the godlike Odysseus, till he came to his own country. Howbeit Poseidon had now departed for the distant Ethiopians, the Ethiopians there that are surrounded in twain, the uttermost of men, abiding some where Operion sinks, and some where he rises. There he looked to receive his hecatomb of bulls and rams. There he made merry, sitting at the feast. But the other gods were gathered in the halls of the Olympian Zeus. Then among them the father of men and gods began to speak, for he bethought him in his heart of noble Aegisthus, whom the son of Agamemnon, far-famed Orestes, slew. Thinking upon him, he spake out among the immortals. Lo you now, how vainly mortal men do blame the gods. For of us, they say, comes evil, whereas they even of themselves, through the blindness of their own hearts, have sorrows beyond that which is ordained. Even as of late, Aegisthus, beyond that which was ordained, took to him the wedded wife of the son of Atreus, and killed her lord on his return. And that was sheer doom before his eyes, since we had warned him by the embassy of Hermes, the keen-sighted, the slayer of Argos, that he should neither kill the man nor woo his wife. The Odyssey, as everyone knows, abounds in passages borrowed from the Iliad. I had wished to print these in slightly different type, with marginal references to the Iliad, and had marked them to this end in my MS. I found, however, that the translation would be thus hopelessly scholasticized, and abandoned my intention. I would nevertheless again urge on those who have the management of our university's presses, that they would render a great service to students if they would publish a Greek text of the Odyssey with the Iliadic passages printed in a different type, with the marginal references. I have given the British Museum a copy of the Odyssey with the Iliadic passages underlined and referred to in MS. I have also given an Iliad marked with all the Odyssean passages and their references, but copies of both the Iliad and the Odyssey so marked ought to be within easy reach of all students. Any one who at present day discusses the questions that have arisen around the Iliad since Wolfe's time, without keeping it well before his reader's mind, the Odyssey was demonstratively written from one single neighborhood, and hence, even though nothing else pointed to this conclusion, presumably by one person only, that it was written certainly before 750, and in all probability before 1000 B.C. That the writer of this very early poem was demonstratively familiar with the Iliad as we now have it, borrowing as freely from those books whose genuineness has been most impunged, as from those which are admitted to be by Homer. Anyone who fails to keep these points well before his readers is hardly dealing equitably by them. Anyone, on the other hand, who will mark his Iliad and his Odyssey from the copies in the British Museum above referred to, and who will draw the only inference that common sense can draw from the presence of Of so many identical passages in both poems will, I believe, find no difficulty in assigning their proper value to a large number of books here on the continent that at present enjoy considerable reputations. Furthermore, and this perhaps is an advantage perhaps better worth securing, he will find many puzzles of the Odyssey cease to puzzle him on the discovery that they arise from the oversaturation with the Iliad. Other difficulties will also disappear as soon as the development of the poem in the writer's mind is understood. I have dealt with this at some length in the authoress of the Odyssey. Briefly, the Odyssey consists of two distinct poems. The return of Ulysses, which alone the muse is asked to sing in the opening lines of the poem. This poem includes the Phaeacian episode and the account of Ulysses' adventures as told by himself in books 9 through 12. It consists of lines 1 through 79, roughly, of Book 1 of line 28 of Book 5, roughly of Book 1, and then of line 28 of Book 5, and thence without intermission to the middle of line 187 of Book 13, at which point the original scheme was abandoned. The story of Penelope and the suitors, with the episode of Telemachus's voyage to Pylos. This poem begins with line 80 roughly of Book 1, it is continued to the end of Book 4, and not resumed till Ulysses wakes in the middle of line 187, Book 13, from whence it continues to the end of Book 24. In the authoress of the Odyssey I wrote the introduction of lines 9, 115-137, and of lines 9535, with the writing a new council of the gods at the beginning of Book 5, which at the place of that was removed to Book 1, 1-79, were the only things that were done to give a semblance of unity to the old scheme and the new, and to conceal the fact that the muse, after being asked to sing of one subject, spent 2/3 of her time in singing a very different one, with a climax for which no one has asked her. For roughly the return of occupies 8 books, and Penelope and the suitors 16. I believe this to be substantially correct. Samuel Butler, July 25th, 1900. 122 years ago. Okay, principal personages of the Odyssey, their parentage and position, the names by which were known to the Romans when different from the Greek and are given in parentheses. How long is this section? Okay. We should be able to at least get into book 1. Okay. I've actually slept between. Yesterday I did a bunch of creepypasta stuff. A book on the U.S. Constitution, and Edgar Allan Poe. I actually wound up calling in sick from work just because, aside from tiredness, honestly, I feel like crap and everything in my body hurts. My back, my knees. I think I'm going to have to start the TRT. I don't think I can avoid it much longer. Let's see, okay. Gods and goddesses. There's Wow, I tried to combine the word Jupiter and Zeus. Zeus, parentheses, Jupiter or Jove, son of Cronus or Saturn, king of the gods and ruler of the sky. Poseidon, parentheses, Neptune, son of Cronus, king of the sea. Hades, son of Cronus, ruler of the House of the Dead. Even though it doesn't say it here, if memory serves, I assume, Hades is Pluto. Even though it doesn't say it here. Athena, it's spelled Athene, it's Minerva, daughter of Zeus. Goddess of skill and intelligence, Apollo, son of Zeus and Leto. Archer, god of light. Oh, and Leto. Okay, haven't heard of him before. Artemis, Diana. Now I'm just thinking of Wonder Woman. And of Anashea, but that's just me. Daughter of Zeus and Leto, huntress, goddess, and Artemis, huntress, goddess of the woods. Aphrodite, Venus, daughter of Zeus and Dione, goddess of love. Ares, Mars, son of Zeus, god of war. Hephaestus, Vulcan, son of Zeus and Hera, god of metalworking and handicraft. Hermes, or parenthesis Mercury, son of Zeus, messenger of the gods. Persephone, or quotations, parentheses, Proserpina, daughter of Demeter, wife of Hades, and the queen of the underworld. Lesser divinities: Proteus, old man of the sea, one of the gods deposed by Zeus. Eldothea, daughter of Proteus, sea nymph. Calypso, daughter of Atlas, island nymph of Ogygia. Ogygia? I'm not pronouncing it. Aeolus, son of a Hippopotamus, keeper of the winds. Circe, daughter of the sun, goddess of the wild, enchantress. Family and household of Odysseus. Odysseus, or Ulysses, son of Laertes, king of Ithaca. Laertes, son of Arcesius, aged father of Odysseus. Penelope, daughter of Icarus. Wonder if it's the same Icarus from the wax-winged story. Wife of Odysseus. Telemachus, son of Odysseus and Penelope. Mentor, friend, and steward of Odysseus. Phemius, son of Terpes, minstrel in the house. Medon, herald. Eumenus, son of Theseus, keeper of Odysseus' swine. Melanthius, son of Dolius, keeper of the goats. Philocteus, keeper of the cattle. Dolius, aged gardener and field worker. Euryclea, daughter of Ops, old nurse of Odysseus and Telemachus. Eurynome, head maid and housekeeper. Melantho, daughter of Dolius, favored maid of Penelope. Eurylochus, husband of Odysseus' sister, sailor with Odysseus. Elpenor, youngest sailor with Odysseus. Men of Ithaca and suitors for the hand of Penelope. I am mispronouncing everything, with the exception of Odysseus, I believe. Agapitus, aged lord in Ithaca. Halithersus, son of Mastor, seer, prophet. Nomen, son of Phronius, ship owner. Pyrrhus, son of Clytus, trusty friend of Telemachus. Eupithes, lord of Ithaca. Eris, town beggar. Antinios, son of Pithites, leader of the suitors. Eurymachus, son of Polybus. Leiocritus, son of Ebenor. Agilus, son of Damastor. Amphimedon, son of Melanus. Setepus, son of Polythersus, suitor from the same, Amphimus, son of Nisus, suitor from Dulcicum, Leoides, son of Anops, soothsayer for the suitors, persons met by Telemachus on his trip to the mainland. Nestor, son of Nalus, aged king of Pylos, returned from Troy. Persistoras, son of Nestor, Menelaus, son of... I just noticed. A lot of these names, you actually see bits or parts of it actually as names of dragons in the Spyro the Dragon game. Huh. Menelaus, son of Atreus, king of Sparta, returned from Troy. Helen, the daughter of Zeus and Leda, and Menelaus brought back from Troy. Theoclymenus, son of Polyphetes, fugitive seer from Argos, received by Telemachus. Dwellers in the land of the Phaeacians. Alcinous, son of Nausithous, king of the Phaeacians in Syria. Arete, daughter of Rexnor, wife of Alcinous and queen of the Phaeacians. Laodamas, eldest son of Alcinous and Arete. Nausicaa, young daughter of Alcinous and Arete. Demodocus, blind bard at Alcinous' court. Euryalus, son of Nabalos, Phaeacian noble. Monsters and other inhuman beings. Polyphemus, son of Poseidon, giant cyclops and ogre. Antiphates, king of the cannibal Laestrygonians. Two sirens, fatal beguilers of men with their singing. Scylla, daughter of the Crates, six-headed monster and man-eater. Charybdis, a whirlpool which draws vessels to their doom. Spirits of the dead in the house of Hades. Tiresias, blind prophet of Thebes, and Thessalia, daughter of Autoclus, wife of Laertes and the mother of Odysseus. Tyro, daughter of Salmoneus, mother by Poseidon and of Peleus, Neleus. Epicast, also called Jocasta, mother and wife of Oedipus, king of Thebes. Agamemnon, son of Atreus, king of the Greeks of Troy. Achilles, son of Peleus, hero of the Iliad. Patroclus, son of Menoetius, comrade of Achilles. Ajax, son of Telamon, great warrior at Troy. Tydeus, Tantalus, and Sisyphus are spirits tormented by punishment. And shade of Heracles, or Hercules, son of Zeus, heroic labor for mankind. New arrivals, spirits of Elpenor and of the suitors. Scene of action. Island of Ithaca, Nestor's home at Pylos. Palace of Menelaus in Sparta, Calypso's island in Ogea in the west. River mouth of Scera, land of the Phaeacians, and the palace of the king Alcinous. The names of the gods and goddesses in the hero Odysseus, which our translator Samuel Butler turned into Latin forms, have in this edition been restored to Greek. I don't know difference. Okay, now for the actual story. Book 1. The gods in council agree that the time has come for Odysseus to be brought home to avenge himself on Penelope's suitors and recover his kingdom, Hermes is sent to Calypso's island to bid her release the captive Odysseus. Athene, disguised as Menestheus, appears to Telemachus, advising him to call an assembly of men of Ithaca to complain of the behavior of the suitors, then go himself in quest of his father to Pylos in Sparta. Um, I'm not criticizing your book. I'm just saying, shouldn't we have started at the part where, like, if I remember right, Odysseus suggested the Trojan horse and helped win the war, and the reason why Poseidon was pissed at him. Like, I feel like that should be the better starting point. This is a little confusing. Tell me, O Muse, that of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide, after he had sacked the famous town of Troy, which, shouldn't that be where we start the story? Many cities did he visit, and many were the nations with whose manners and customs he was acquainted. Moreover, he suffered much by the sea while trying to save his own life and bring his men safely home. But do what he might, he could not save his men, for they perished through their own sheer folly in eating the cattle of the sun god Hyperion. So the god prevented them from ever reaching home. Tell me, too, about all these things, O daughter of Zeus, from whatsoever source you may know them. So now all who escaped death in battle, or by shipwreck, had gotten safely home, except Odysseus. And he, though he was longing to return to his wife and country, was detained by the goddess Calypso, who had got him in a large cave and wanted to marry him. But as years went by, there came a time when the gods settled that he should go back to Ithaca. Even then, however, when he was among his own people, his troubles were not yet over. Nevertheless, all the gods had now begun to pity him, except Poseidon, who still persecuted him without ceasing, and would not let him go home. Now Poseidon had gone off to the Ethiopians, who are at the world's end, and lie in two halves, the one looking west and the other east. And he had gone there to accept a hecatomb of sheep and oxen. I'm not sure what hecatomb means. I think it's a unit of measurement, maybe? I don't know. And was enjoying himself at his festival. But the other gods met in the house of Olympian Zeus, and the sire of gods and men spoke first. At that moment he was thinking of Agis, who had been killed by Agamemnon's son, Orestes. So he had said to the other gods, See now how men lay blame upon us gods, for what is after all nothing but their own folly. Look at Aegisthus. He must needs make love to Agamemnon's wife unrighteously, and then kill Agamemnon, though he knew it would be the death of him. For I sent Hermes to warn him not to do either of these things, inasmuch as Orestes would be sure to take his revenge when he grew up and wanted to return home. Hermes told him this in all good will, but he would not listen, and now he has paid for everything in full. Then Athene said, Father, son of Cronos, king of kings, it is served Aegisthus right, and so would anyone else who does as he did. But Aegisthus is neither here nor there. It is for Odysseus that my heart bleeds. When I think of his sufferings in that lonely sea-girt island, far away, poor man, from all his friends, it is an island covered with forest in the very middle of the sea, and the goddess lives there, daughter of the magician Atlas, who looks after the bottom of the ocean, and carries the great columns that keep heaven and earth asunder. This daughter of Atlas has got hold of poor unhappy Odysseus, and keeps trying but every kind of blandishment to make him forget his home, so that he is tired of life, and thinks of nothing but how he may once more see the smoke of his own chimneys. You, sir, take no heed of this, and yet when Odysseus was before Troy, did he not propitiate you with many a burnt sacrifice? Why then should you keep on being so angry with him? And Zeus said, My child, what are you talking about? How can I forget Odysseus, than whom there is no more capable man on earth, nor more liberal in his offerings to the immortal gods that live in heaven? Bear in mind, however, that Poseidon is still furious with Odysseus for having blinded an eye of Polyphemus, king of the Cyclopses. Polyphemus is son to Poseidon, the nymph of Thusa, daughter to the sea king Phorcys. Therefore, though he will not kill Odysseus outright, he torments him by preventing him from getting home. Still, let us lay our heads together and see how we can help him return home. Poseidon will then be pacified, for if we are all of a mind, he can hardly stand against us. Though, are we not going to bring up the original point, why Poseidon was pissed about how he felt disrespected by Odysseus? Because initially there was a prophet that tried to actually stop Odysseus in his plan that allowed them to win the war, and Poseidon sent like a sea beast. There was tentacles coming out of the ocean. We've all seen enough hentai to know where that goes. Yes, it's a comedy channel. I'm going to have jokes here and there, no matter how lewd or inappropriate they are. Main point is this. Poseidon intervened, and if it wasn't for that, Odysseus' plan would have failed. And yet at the end, Odysseus was like, yay, I won the war by myself because I'm very smart. It's like, I didn't need anyone's help. And Poseidon felt slighted. And so Poseidon's like, well, rather than just talk to you about this, I'm going to strand you in the ocean and have every kind of monster try to kill you. And then I'm going to strand you on an island. The super smart tactician with a group of soldiers on an island. Like, if you really cared about Polyphemus, why did you strand Odysseus there? It's like, well, because you thought, Polyphemus would win. But here's the thing. The very reason why anyone valued Odysseus was that he was very smart and capable and a genius. What did you expect to happen? Just saying. You could have just talked to him. I'm pretty sure most humans would be more cooperative if anything disagreed with us. Just talk to us. That includes other humans. Why does everyone suck at communication? And Athene said, Father, son of Cronus, king of kings, if then the gods now mean Odysseus should get home, we should first send Hermes to the Ogygian islands, tell Calypso that we have made up our minds and that he is to return. In the meantime, I will go to Ithaca to put heart into Odysseus' son Telemachus. I will embolden him to call the Athenians in assembly and to speak out to the suitors of his mother Penelope, who persist in eating up any number of his sheep and oxen. I will also conduct him to Sparta and Pylos to see if he can hear anything about the return of his dear father, for this will make the people speak well of him. So saying, she bound on her glittering golden sandals, imperishable, with which she can fly like the wind over land and sea. She grasped the redoubtable bronze-shod spear, so stout and sturdy and strong, wherewith she quells the ranks of heroes who have displeased her. And down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus, whereon forthwith she was in Ithaca, at the gateway of Odysseus' house, disguised as a visitor of Mentes, chief of the Taphians, and she held a bronze spear in her hands. There she found the lordly suitors, seated on hides of oxen, which they had killed and eaten, and playing draughts in front of the house. I'm not sure what that means. Playing draughts? I don't know what that means. In front of the house. Men-servants and pages were bustling about to wait upon them, some mixing wine with water in the mixing bowls, some cleaning down the tables with wet sponges and laying them out again, and some cutting up great quantities of meat. Telemachus saw her long before anyone else. He was sitting moodily among the suitors, thinking about his brave father, and how he would send them flying out of the house if he were to come into his own again, and be honored as in the days gone by. Thus brooding as he sat among them, he caught the sight of Athene, and went straight to the gate, for he was vexed that the stranger should be kept waiting for admittance. How long is this? Okay, I can at least go till book 2. He took her right hand in his own, and bade her give him her spear. "Welcome," said he, "to our house, and when you have partaken of food, you shall tell us where you have come from, what you have come for." He led the way as he spoke, and Athene followed him. When they were within, he took the spear and set it in the spear stand again. So is everyone bringing a spear? Like, it's a double as a walking stick. Granted, I understand you had to go around armed at that time, but still, it's just spear stand. I'm just imagining a modern equivalent of this. As Athena walked in, she handed her rifle, and it was put on the gun rack. It's a comedy channel. I'm going to make a joke here and there. It's supposed to be lighthearted, says the man who spent most of the day yesterday reading creepypastas. Even though one of them was called The Salmon Cowboy, which was what the hell was happening in that story? What was that? What was going on in the mind of that author? Okay. And set it in the spear stand against a strong bearing post, along with many other spears of his unhappy father. And he conducted her to a richly decorated seat, under which he threw a cloth of damask. I don't know what that is. There's going to be like so many things in this story that I don't know what they mean. There was a footstool also for her feet, and he set another seat near her for himself, away from the suitors, that she might not be annoyed while eating by their noise and insolence, and that he might ask her more freely about his father. A maidservant then brought them water in a beautiful golden ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands, and she drew a clean table beside them. An upper servant brought them bread, and offered them many good things of what there was in the house. The carver fetched them plates of all manner of meats, and set cups of gold by their side. And a manservant brought them wine and poured it out for them. Then the suitors came in and took their places on the benches and seats. Forthwith men servants poured water over their hands. Maids went round with the bread baskets. Pages filled mixing bowls with wine and water, and they laid their hands upon the good things that were before them. As soon as they had had enough to eat and drink, they wanted music and dancing, which are the crowning embellishments of a banquet. So a servant brought a lyre to Phemius, whom they compelled perforce. Why not perform? Perforce to sing to them. As soon as he touched the lyre and began to sing, Telemachus spoke low to Athene, with his head close to hers, so that no man might hear. "I hope, sir," said he, "that you will not be offended with what I am going to say. Singing comes cheap to those who do not pay for it, and all this is done at the cost of one whose bones lie rotting in some wilderness or grinding to powder in the surf. If these men were to see my father come back to Ithaca, they would pray for longer legs rather than a longer purse, for money would not serve them. But he, alas, has fallen on an ill fate. And even when people do sometimes say that he is coming, we no longer heed them. We shall never see him again. And now, sir, tell me, and tell me true, who you are, and where you come from. Tell me of your town and your parents, what manner of ship you came in, how your crew brought you to Ithaca, and what nation they declared themselves to be, for you cannot have come by land. Tell me also truly, for I want to know, are you a stranger to this house, or have you been here in my father's time, in the old days? We had many visitors, for my father went about much himself. And Athene answered, I will tell you truly, and particularly all about it. I am Mentes, son of Anchialus, and I am king of the Tapians. I have come here with my ship and crew on a voyage to men of a foreign tongue, being bound for Temesa with a cargo of iron, and I shall bring back copper. As for my ship, it lies over yonder, over the open country, away from my own town, away from the town, in the harbor of Rytron, under the wooded mountain Meredith. Our fathers were friends before us, as old Laertes will tell you, if you will go and ask him. They say, however, that he never comes to town now, and lives by himself in the country, faring hardly, with an old woman to look after him and get his dinner for him. When he comes in, tired from pottering about his vineyard, they told me your father was at home again, and that was why I came. But it seems the gods are still keeping him back, for he is not dead yet, not on the mainland. It is more likely he is on some sea-girt island in the mid-ocean, or a prisoner among savages who are detaining him against his will. I am no prophet, and know very little about omens, but I speak as it is borne in upon me from heaven, and assure you that he will not be away much longer, for he is a man of such resource, and even though he were in chains of iron, he would find some means of getting home again. But tell me, and tell me true, can Odysseus really have such fine-looking fellow for a son? You are indeed wonderfully like him, and the head and eyes, for we were close friends before he set sail for Troy, where the flower of Argives went also. Since that time we have never either of us seen one another. My mother, answered Telemachus, tells me I am the son of Odysseus, but it is a wise child that knows his own father. Would that I were son to one had grown old upon his own estate. For since you were asked me, there is no more ill-starred man under heaven than he who they say tell me is my father. And Athene said, there is no fear of your race dying out yet, while Penelope has such a fine son as you are. But tell me, and tell me true, what is the meaning of all this feasting? And who are these people? What is it all about? Have you some banquet, or is there a wedding in the family? For no one seems to be bringing any provisions of his own. And the guests, how atrociously they are behaving! What riot they make over the whole house! It is enough to disgust any respectable person who comes near them. Sir, said Telemachus, as regards your question, so long as my father was here, it was well within us and with the house. But the gods in their displeasure have willed it otherwise, and they have hidden him away more closely than mortal man was ever yet hidden. I could have borne it better, even though he were dead, if he had fallen with his own men before Troy, or had died with friends around him, when the days of his fighting were done. For when the Achaeans would have built a mound over his ashes, and I should myself have been heir to his renown. But now the storm winds have spirited him away, we know not whither. He is gone without leaving so much as a trace behind him, and I inherit nothing but dismay. Nor does the matter end simply with grief for the loss of my father. Heaven has laid sorrows upon me, yet another kind, for the chiefs from all of our islands, Dulcicum, Same, and the woodland island of Zacynthus, as also all the principal men of Ithaca itself, are eating up my house under the pretext of paying their court to my mother, who will neither point blank say that she will not marry, nor yet bring matters to an end. So they are making havoc of my estate, and before long will do so also myself. Is that so? Exclaimed Athene. Then you do not, then you do intend, then you do indeed want Odysseus home again? Give him his helmet, shield, and a couple of lances, and if he is the man he was when I first knew him in our house, drinking and making merry, he would soon lay his hands about these rascally suitors. Were he to stand once more upon his own threshold, was then coming from Phyra, where he had been to beg poison for his arrows, from Ilus son of Mammarus. Ilus feared the ever-living gods, and would not give him any, but my father let him have some, for he was very fond of him. If Odysseus is the man he was then, these suitors will have a short shrift and a sorry wedding. But there it rests with heaven to determine whether he is to return, and to take his revenge, in his own house or no. I would, however, urge you to set about trying to get rid of these suitors at once. Take my advice. Call the Achaean heroes in assembly tomorrow morning. Lay your case before them, and call heaven to bear your witness. Bid the suitors take themselves off, each to his own place, and if your mother's mind is set on marrying again, let her go back to her father, who will find her a husband, and provide her. I'm actually surprised her father would still be alive at this point. Like, how old would he have to be? Provide her with all the marriage gifts, so that a dear daughter may expect. As for yourself, let me prevail upon you to take the best ship you can get, with a crew of 20 men, and go in quest of your father, who has long been missing. Someone may tell you something, or, and people often hear things in this way, some heaven-sent messenger may direct you. First go to Pylos and ask Nestor. Thence go on to Sparta and visit Menelaus. Then he got home last of all the Achaeans. If you hear that your father is alive and on his way home, you can put up with the waste these suitors will make for you yet another 12 months. If on the hand you hear of his death, come home at once. Celebrate his funeral rites with all due pomp, build a barrow to his memory, and make your mother marry again. Then, having done all this, think it well over in your mind. By fair means or foul, you may kill these suitors of your own house. You are too old to plead infancy any longer. Have you not heard how people are singing Orestes' praises for having killed his father's murderer, Agathias? You are a fine, smart-looking fellow. Show your mettle, then, and make yourself a name in story. Now, however, I must go back to my ship, and to my crew, who will be impatient if I keep them waiting longer. Think the matter over for yourself, and remember what I have said to you. Sir, answered Telemachus, it has been very kind of you to talk to me in this way, as though I were your own son, and I will do all you tell me. I know you want me to be getting on with your voyage. But stay a little longer till you have taken a bath and refreshed yourself. I will then give you a present, and you shall go on your way rejoicing. I will give you one of great beauty and value, a keepsake such as only dear friends give to one another. Athene answered, do not try to keep me, for I would be on my way at once. As for any present you may be disposed to make me, keep it till I come again, and I will take it home with me. You shall give me a very good one, and I will give you one of no less value in return. With these words she flew away like a bird into the air, but she had given Telemachus courage, and had made him think more than ever about his father. He felt the change, wondered at it, and knew that the stranger had been a god. So he went straight to where the suitors were sitting. Phemius was still singing. By the way, out of curiosity, were we using flew away like a bird as a euphemism? Or like, he just got up and moved really quickly, or actually transformed into a bird? Like, I assume it's euphemism for just you got up and left really quickly, like power walked. Phemius was still singing, and his hearers sat wrapped in silence as he told the sad tale of the return from Troy, and the ills Athene had laid upon the Achaeans. Penelope, daughter of Icarus, heard his song from her room upstairs and came down by the great staircase, not alone, but attended by two of her handmaids. When she reached the suitors, she stood by one of the bearing posts that supported the roof of the cloisters, with a staid maid on either side of her. She held a veil, moreover, before her face, and was weeping bitterly. "Phemius," she cried, "you know many another feat of the gods and heroes, such as poets love to celebrate. Sing the suitors some one of these, and let them drink their wine in silence. But cease this sad tale, for it breaks my sorrowful heart. It reminds me of my lost husband, whom I mourn ever without ceasing, and whose name was great over all Hellas and middle Argos." "Mother," answered Telemachus, "let the bard sing what he has had a mind to. Bards do not make the ills they sing of. It is Zeus, nor they who makes them, who sends them weal or woe upon mankind according to his own good pleasure. This fellow means no harm by singing this ill-fated return of the bananas, for people always applaud the latest songs most warmly. Make up your mind to it and bear it. Odysseus is not the only man who never came back from Troy, but many another went down as well as he. Go then, within the house, and busy yourself with your daily duties, your loom, your distaff, and your ordering of your servants. For speech is man's matter, and mine above all others, for it is I who am master here." She went wandering back into the house, and laid her son's saying to heart. Then, going upstairs with her handmaids into her room, she mourned her dear husband till Athene shed sweet sleep over her eyes. But the suitors were clamorous throughout the covered cloisters, and prayed each other one that he might be her bedfellow. Then Telemachus spoke. "Shameless," he cried, "and insolent suitors, let us feast at our pleasure now, and let there be no brawling. For it is a rare thing to hear a man with such a divine voice as Phemius has. But in the morning meet me in full assembly, that I may give you formal notice to depart, and feast at one another's houses. Turn and turn about at your own cost. If on the other hand you choose to persist on sponging upon one man, heaven help me, but Zeus shall reckon with you in full. And when you fall in my father's house, there shall be no man to avenge you." The suitors bit their lips as they heard him, and marveled at the boldness of his speech. Then Antonius, son of Ephites, said, "The gods seem to have given you lessons in bluster and tall talking. May Zeus never grant you to be chief in Ithaca, as your father was before you." Telemachus answered, "Antonius, do not chide with me, but God willing, I will be chief too if I can. In this, the worst fate you can think of for me, it is no bad thing to be a chief, for it brings both riches and honor. Still now that Odysseus is dead, there are many great men in Ithaca, both old and young, and some other may take lead among them. Nevertheless, I will be chief in my own house, and will rule those whom Odysseus has won for me." Then Eurymachus, son of Polybus, answered, "It rests within heaven to decide who shall be chief among us. But you shall be master in your own house, and over your own possessions. While there is a man in Ithaca, no one shall do you violence or rob you. And now, my good fellow, I want to know about this stranger. What country does he come from? Of what family is he? And where is his estate? Has he brought you news about the return of your father, or was he on business of his own? He seemed a well-to-do man, but he hurried off so suddenly that he was gone in a moment before we could get to know him." "My father is dead and gone," answered Telemachus, "and even if some rumors reach me, I put no more faith in it now. My mother does indeed sometimes send for a soothsayer to question him, but I give his prophesying no heed. As for the stranger, he was Mentes, son of Anchialus, chief of the Taphians, an old friend of my father's, but in his heart he knew that it had been the goddess. The suitors then returned to their singing and dancing until the evening, but when the night fell upon their pleasuring, they went home to bed each in his own boat. Kind of like, if I remember the movie right, Telemachus was being pretty open that he still thought his dad was still alive there. Huh. Bed each in his own abode. Telemachus' room was high up in the tower that looked on to the other court. Hither then hied, Hied, brooding and full of thought. A good old woman, Euryclea, daughter of Opis, or Opser, the son of Pisanor, went before him with a couple of blazing torches. Laertes had bought her with his own money when she was quite young. He gave the worth of 20 oxen for her, and showed as much respect to her and his household as he did his own wedded wife. But he did not take her to his bed, for he feared his wife's resentment. So she it was who now lighted Telemachus to his room, and she loved him better than any of the other women in the house did. For she had nursed him when he was a baby. He opened the door of his bedroom and sat down upon the bed. As he took off his shirt and gave it to the good old woman, who folded it tidily up and hung it for him over a peg by his bedside, after which she went out, pulled the door to by a silver catch, and drew the bolt home by means of the strap. But Telemachus, sounds like doors were really complicated back then. But Telemachus, as he lay covered with a woolen fleece, kept thinking all night through all his intended voyage, and all the counsel that Athene had given him. Okay. That's the preface in book 1. My back and knees still hate me. Okay, bye everybody.